This is Cult Confessions with Christy and Josie. Welcome to our podcast.
Trigger warning. May contain themes of religious trauma and sexual abuse. Disclaimer. All information in this podcast is our opinion based on our experiences. We do not purport any of this content to be inherently factual and believe that each individual has the right to draw their own conclusion.
Hey, I'm Christy.
And I'm Josie. And today on Cult Confessions, we are joined by our guest Cody. Cody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're super excited that you're here. So Cody and I have known each other for a long time. We both went to Faith. And Cody, you're also pretty familiar with Christy, right? You're good friends with Nathan?
This is true. Yes, correct.
So lots of connections. So I think we'll just go ahead
for a while.
Yes. I think we'll go ahead and just jump right in. Cody, if you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started with the IFB and a little bit about what your journey has been like.
Yeah, appreciate that. I reckon it goes all the way back to about 5.5, 6 years old, right? About 5.5, 6 years old is when I got saved in a IFB church, right? So it started at a very young age. I would say indoctrination started at a very young age, right? Ever since I can remember how to tie my shoes is when it started. So really just the ground point of when everything started as far as indoctrination, believing in hell, believing in heaven, was roughly about 5.5 to 6.5 years old. So when I got saved, believed, the whole 9 yards with IFB.
And you, what church did you go to during that time?
Yeah. So from like I said, about 5.5 to about early 20s, probably after graduation sometime, Faith Baptist Church.
And you were part of Gospel Light, right?
Yeah, this is correct. So there was a short time before Gospel Light and Faith Baptist Church merged together that my family, when they were still, intact and together, a little bit of time there, we were part of Gospel Light. And then when Gospel Light merged with Faith Baptist Church, that's when we became members of Faith Baptist Church.
And you had Pastor Rick Donnelly at Gospel Light, right?
This is correct, yes.
Okay. Can you maybe just talk us through a little bit about like first impressions of Faith? How did the merger go? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, as being a very, very young kid, a lot of it is very distant and very, very much memories now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think whenever you look back from 5 to 8 to 9 years old in that time frame, as you get older, right, being 30 years old now, time seems to kind of slip on by, right? But looking back, right, looking at memories of it, a lot of my first memories really ever were in the church, were around the church, were, completely surrounding everything involving the church, whether it be setting up, taking down, in a sermon, in a chapel, wearing some sort of school uniform and whatnot. Every first memory I had was around or in a church.
That's a lot. Like that just becomes the focal point of everything. It's not healthy.
I agree.
So you went to the church school, right? Faith Baptist Academy.
Correct.
How old were you when you started going there?
Yeah. So I did kindergarten twice, right? So my first teacher was actually Mrs. Postma. Uh,
Hmm.
Pastor, well, not pastor, but Principal Postma was my first principal at Faith Baptist Church, or school, Faith Baptist Academy. So a lot of people don't remember, but Pastor Postma at one point was our principal, right? Um, so when I was very young, he was my first principal at Faith Baptist Church or Faith Baptist Academy. And then Tammy Postma was actually my first kindergarten teacher. Now I did kindergarten twice. So first it was Mrs. Postma.
I did
Then,
too.
yeah, then it was actually Mrs. Well, now it's I believe Mrs. Burkholder. So
Mm.
back then it was a different name. It was Mrs. Boyle. because she would have been Patrick Gray Boyle's daughter at the time. So the name was different way back when I was younger, years ago, being very, very young.
Oh yeah, she was Miss
Um,
Boyle instead of.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, before the name changed and got married and whatnot. 'Cause I remember, being kindergarten, watching the whole butterfly cocoon, the whole 9 yards, learning about it and whatnot, and then setting the butterflies free and crying as a little kid because the butterfly went away. But
I remember
yeah,
doing
started
that
at a
in
very early age.
I think I did that in 6th grade in Mrs. Boland's class. We raised the butterflies and then got to release them into the wild. That was fun. So you went to Faith Baptist Academy from kindergarten, did kindergarten twice, and then you graduated from there, right? So I mean that was your school.
This is correct. Yeah, not only did I graduate from it, but so did both my sisters as well. So it was kind of
Okay.
like a family type like history to go through,
Yeah.
very young age and graduate from there. Yes.
Can you talk about some of your experiences at the school?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Unfortunately, a lot of my memories about the Faith Baptist Academy are not good. There was a few bright spots, of course. I mean, I think, any kind of school you go to, there's going to be maybe one or two bright spots. But for the majority of the time, a lot of it was faced with a lot of bullying at a very young age. A lot of it was faced with a lot of just strange rules, very strange policies, um, that just even as a young kid made no sense. And when you would ask about them, you would get told, well, since you're asking, you have an attitude. Since you're asking, you're being rebellious. Since you're
Mm.
asking, you're not trusting. So basically, asking was not trusting, and questioning was doubting your faith, even as a young kid. Um, so a lot of these handbooks or guidebooks, right, with rules and regulations makes no sense, even for a very young kid to have to follow. It very much was a military type school for very young kids. Um, I understand having some rules, to keep people safe and keep kids safe and whatnot, sure, but the extent of some of these rules were very extreme. And so a lot of my memories were I remember being shoved in lockers for hours by high schoolers
Hours?
and nothing being done about it. Teachers coming to find me, open up lockers and asking, "What are you doing in a locker?" And of course, I'm just crying, thinking like,
Oh my
"Well,
gosh.
what am I doing in a locker?" Great question.
Do you
Um,
remember who put you in the locker?
oh yeah, I do. One of them was Adam Fleener, and the other one was um, there was Adam Fleener. Then there was Alex Kimbrough as well.
I feel like a lot of the rules and just like the whole idea of like not questioning anything um is really like hand in hand with them kind of shutting down our curiosity about
Mm-hmm.
life. Um and I feel like a lot of the rules and everything like really shuts that down, that part of us down for sure.
Yeah, it starts from a very young age. I mean, when you're in kindergarten, like when you're a child in that school, like a young child, like you have to sit up straight, you have to walk in a straight line, you have to make sure that, your uniform is clean and everything like that, which I mean, some of that's normal, but like it just goes to a next level. And yeah, I didn't start going to the school until I was in 4th grade, but I remember asking questions about things and being told, oh, because I say so and I'm the teacher, it was the answer. And that's not cool. But yeah, they really do just shut down curiosity. Like, you're not supposed to have that natural curiosity because that's dangerous for them.
Hmm. I agree, 100%.
So, I know that we talked a little bit and you were bullied a lot at that school. Um, do
That's correct.
you feel comfortable talking through some of those experiences? I mean, I know you were shoved in lockers, but I'm sure you had other things happen as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I saw bullying as a very ongoing thing, not just for myself, but for other people. And these teachers would see it, right? And the problem was, even though teachers would see it, there was not a lot of corrective behavior done in public, right? So sure, yeah, do some corrective, in private and discipline and everything, but if you're not showing a strong force of corrective behavior in public, when you see bullying, that shows a behavior of you just don't care. It shows a behavior of, well, a very young kid is frightened, scared out of their mind. They're a kid. They're still struggling with, just a lot of developmental learning things, right? So if you don't actually show that you're caring in the moment and you're only doing it in private, that little kid is going to continue to be scared, right? So not only was I shoved in lockers, I would get bullied for my speech impediment. I get bullied for my learning not being quite as fast as say of other people. Um, if you were in you would not really in say like this cool clique, even as a very young kid, you were easy target to be picked on. So these older high schoolers, right, because they did not have great self-regulation when it came to their own emotions, they would take it out on younger kids, right? And because there was no public correction of bullying or just disrespect or really any kind of just correction that we could see as little kids looking up to these older ones, right? Our elders or our people close to respect or whatever that means now, even back then, it really displayed a culture of just toxicness, even as a very young age, looking up. Because if we're looking up to the people and all we're doing is being shoved in lockers, pushed around, this is by staff kids as well. Luke Donnelly is also someone that used to bully me a lot too, until I got old enough and I said, hey, enough is enough. You do this again, we're going to have a problem. So thank goodness for puberty, getting older and whatnot. Thank you, puberty. I appreciate you so much. Um,
It's
W,
done wonders, yeah.
W2 puberty. Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask, do you want to talk a little bit about your learning disabilities and how that affected everything at Faith, like when it comes to schooling and also the bullying?
Yeah, I think it affects it greatly. Now, obviously, I'm not going to put blame necessarily on, say, a bully, even though bullying is wrong, but they're the ones that are not necessarily doing the damage when it comes to learning, right? They're doing more of the physical, more of the scare type tactics when it comes to bullying. But I'm talking more about, say, like a learning difficulty. And I didn't even know quite what I had when I was younger either, right? Because you're still a kid and you're still wondering, why can I learn at a faster rate or even just a more equal rate as far as like other kids, right? And having a speech impediment on top of that, it made things even that much more difficult, right? So if it was just a learning difficulty without a speech impediment, probably would have been a little bit easier, or vice versa, right? But
Yeah,
when
it's
you have both
probably
of those,
easier to like hide, I guess, or like pass as normal, I guess. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, you're right. It definitely made things challenging. Um, it's even if you were to take away both of those, I still struggle with school. So you add both of those layers on top of it, it makes every day a challenge. It makes every day a burden, right? It makes you feel like you're a burden to just society, or even just a
Mhm.
school, or even just to a religion, right? Um, and that's why I took several months, several years as a young kid, just learning new words, reading the encyclopedia, reading the dictionary. Believe it or not really reading too much of the Bible unless I was forced to for Bible class, right? Um, but no, I became best friends with an encyclopedia, with a dictionary, with the library, spending hours there just reading, reading into philosophy, reading into all different kind of books of history, real history, not fake Christian school history.
So is that
Seriously.
something you felt like you had to do because you were picked on?
Yes and no. So it's not just like I felt like I had to, but I also felt like I needed to, right? So when you have these sorts of learning difficulties, right, there's a need of wanting to find a outlet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just that you feel like you need to, but it's almost like you feel like that you must. So there's a need to, there's a must, and there's almost like a want, like it's like a desire to find a way where you can also get ahead as well. Because when you're in that
You're
situation as a
basically
kid,
just
right?
like trying to help yourself in some
Yeah,
way.
it's and like any way you can, try to help yourself get ahead as a kid.
Mhm. Did your parents ever do anything to help you at all?
The only thing I was really ever helped with was there was a school right down from Faith Baptist Academy called Cooper Elementary, and every other Friday, I believe when I was in junior high, I would walk down from the school every other Friday, and there'd be other teachers there, and there'd be different kids from different ages. We'd all sit around, work on our easy onsets, and just basically kind of like relearning how to enunciate different words, right?
Okay. Like speech
So if you,
therapy?
yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But as far as like learning type exercises or whatever kind I had going on up here, right in my noggin, nothing really regarding that whatsoever. And the school itself, let's be honest here, the school itself knew that it wasn't just me that had, say, learning challenges growing up. So
Mm-hmm.
if the school saw it and did nothing, that's a shame and that should be a crime right there.
Yeah.
So
Um, well,
what were the teachers' reactions to like your like issues with learning? Like what kind of things were you told like when you got a bad grade on a test or something like that?
Yeah. So a lot of the times it would, strangely enough, be compared to like silence. It'd be compared to like shame. It'd be compared to like, what's wrong with you? And a lot of times it wasn't really open. It wasn't really like, oh, well, I'm just going to speak bad about a kid because who, like what teacher does that, right? And you're going to look horrible,
mm,
right? And then other kids will tell on you, right? Like, hey, mom, dad, this teacher was making fun of a kid. Who's going to do that? But eventually it got to that point, right, where they get so frustrated and they would raise their voice and say, "Well, you just need to study more. You just need to pay attention more. You just need to focus more." Well, I never had an issue with focusing. Never had an issue with wanting to learn more. There was something up here in my brain that wasn't really firing all cylinders. As quick as
mhm.
say. But if teachers don't take the time and actually sit down and truly listen and truly try to connect with kids when they teach them, then again, that's on the teacher, not the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I recently found out is that um one of the reasons they have the schools be unaccredited or whatever, like the way that the school district works within the Christian churches, they make it in a way that they can't get in trouble for not giving the children the help that they need. So when you have a child with disabilities and stuff, they don't have to do anything to help them. That's
Yeah.
like how it's set up. So they can't get in trouble for it. Um, with that being said, I feel like personally, like Christian schools should be shut down, to be honest, because they don't offer they're not inclusive. They don't offer
No.
disabled kids help. They don't offer people with autism, with ADHD, with any of that, any learning disability of any kind. They don't offer any extra help, whereas the public school system has all of those things available to parents.
Yeah.
And like they'll do everything in their power to help the child along. And they're also trained to look for these things within a child. So like instead of being like, why is this kid being bad? They're like, oh, this kid actually seems to have
How can I
this
help them?
learning disability. Like how can we make this better? How can we help them along? So that's the huge difference between a public school and a Christian school.
I want to
And
add to that
yeah.
really quick that like in public schools parental advocation is encouraged 99% of the time. Like you are encouraged as a parent to go in there and advocate for your child even if the teacher doesn't like you, even if the principal is annoyed by you, whatever. You have that right as a parent in a public school to go in, advocate for your child and get them the help that they need. You can't do that in Christian schools. We had I remember after we did our episode on like that school book,
Hmm.
um, I was reminded about a piece of paper that we had to sign that our parents had to sign at Faith that said that they would defer to the administration, that said that they would allow them to make decisions and support them against the students when it came to like any conflicts or anything.
Yeah,
So
like put the authority first over their child, which is
yeah,
crazy because your kid should always come first when it comes
always.
to their education and their
Yep.
life. Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't
We
make
just
any
weren't given
sense.
that. We weren't given that. I remember that there were times when my dad was like annoyed with something that happened And my mom would be like, oh, well, it just, this is what the school wants and this is what they said. So this is what we have to do. Like, there was no avenue for him to even like submit a complaint of any kind. Like, it just didn't exist.
So, when did you find out about your diagnosis?
Yeah. So unfortunately, my diagnosis didn't happen until later in life, right? So as a young kid, it was more so, oh, well, he has speech impediment. Oh, well, he's just horrible at school. And there was a known
I'm
feeling
sure
or a known,
I'm sure
um,
they probably said that you weren't disciplined enough.
um, yes and no. There was a lot of toxic thought and toxic mentality behind single moms raising
Oh,
kids,
okay.
right? So whether it was a Christian school with it being Faith Baptist Academy or Faith Baptist Church, of course, connected between a little breezeway, hallway, whatever you want to call it, they very much did look down on single moms, right? So they would use single moms to obviously benefit the church, serve whatever kind of ministry, right? And like I said, I grew up in this, so I knew the ins and outs of Faith Baptist Church, Faith Baptist Academy, all these things, right? Because my mom was a big integral part in a lot of these setting up, taking down the in-betweens, mission conference, all these things, right?
Auctions, everything. Your mom was in everything. She ran the kitchen. She made us all
Yeah,
aprons. Like your mom ran a lot.
this is correct. So I got to see all the inner workings of everything, to be honest.
So she worked for the church?
No. So
It
technically,
was all
she never actually
volunteer?
worked. It was all volunteer, yes.
Damn.
You know, at a later point in life, obviously, she was given what we call a Costco card, right? The famous Baptist kind of like, hey, we'll give you a Costco card, and whenever you have to, go help out for, say, the mission conference, you help out for the sports banquet, you help out with the all these different events for whether it was for the school or church. We'll give you, a Costco card. You can go get the stuff. And I literally remember, helping with the auction, right, that the school started years ago. My mom was a very integral part of, helping get that off the ground, and a lot of donations and all the things. I remember going all across town, right? And asking, hey, will you donate to the school? And I'm thinking like, I don't even like this school. Why am I helping like spend weekends helping with this auction? Right?
Yep.
It was so asinine, to be honest with you.
I remember one time
Yeah.
we had to go canvas the mall. Like we got like a field trip out of school and it was to go to the mall at the Northtown Mall. And we would go and we would ask all of these businesses in the mall if they wanted to donate to help our school and sign them up for like little donations and stuff. God, that was crazy. We got ice cream out of it, so you know, it's
So
totally
how
fair.
old were you when you got like what is your diagnosis and how old were you when you finally were able to do that?
Yeah, so like I said, this was a very much later in life kind of thing, right? When I was younger, there was the thoughts or ideas of it being like Asperger's. Now, granted, that term has kind of like died out like years ago now.
Yeah.
So with being on a spectrum, we're at the very high end of the spectrum, right? Like I said, the diagnosis never happened when I was at school. This was later in life, right, as a very young adult. Because I personally took upon myself to, let's go get diagnosed and let's see if there's anything actually there or whatnot,
Hmm.
right? Because it could just very well be maybe I'm just lower at learning than say other people, right? Obviously that wasn't the case because there was a disconnect somewhere, not firing on all cylinders up in, the cranium area up here, right? Um, so the best explanation I can give to this, and to kind of be as specific as I can, is that on the spectrum you have a low end and a high end as far as being on the spectrum, right? Of course, you have like the middle section as well. For different people, when you're on a spectrum, you could be at the low end, like the middle end, or I'm sorry, like the middle, and then of course at the high end, right? So if you're at the very high end, like myself, you can kind of like, I won't use the word cope, but you can kind of blend in. You can kind of like in disguise, like a spy, right?
Hmm.
So
Like
you can kind
masking?
of pass. Yeah, kind of like masking, kind of pass for seeming normal, right? Or seeming functional in society. Um, so, let's say, for example, maybe you and Josie are good at like, or maybe you two are good at like one thing, right? Or you're good at several things. I might be good at very specific things, very unique things that you wouldn't really think of, right? And even I don't know that either. So there's a lot of areas where I might struggle in, but then there's some areas I might be really good at, right? So it depends for each person, whatever level they're on the spectrum. So like I say, it depends for every person. Not every person is going to be the same. For me, I'm on a very high end of it. So what they diagnosed is right, but they basically put me as like I'm on a very high end of a spectrum, basically. So some days no one can tell I am. Other days I can definitely tell I am.
Mhm.
So it's almost like a roller coaster where it goes up and it goes down. Either it's mentally or just sometimes you can tell. So some days you have no idea. Other days it's kind of obvious. So
Mhm.
it's very much a roller coaster up and down.
Yeah. So I have a very mild autism diagnosis. It's not very obvious unless you know me pretty well, or unless you're around me a lot. But there are times when my husband will look at me and he'd be like, "Wow, you're autistic! Like that was such an autism moment!" like, and like yeah. So mine is very mild, and most people don't know. Most people, I mean, there's nothing that would really tell you unless you spent a lot of time with me. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. There are some days where I'm just like all over the place. It's a little ridiculous. And then there's some days that I just feel totally normal. So, can you talk a little bit about what was your life like at home? I know that you said that, single mom and the church was not very accepting of that. Um, did that affect your home life?
Oh, for sure, right. Um, I think when churches look at single moms, right, they look at it like they're either a cause where they have to seem like they're helping, but they're not, or B, they just don't really give two shits, to be very honest and frank with you, right? They really don't. So they put on a persona, or a whatever you want to call a show of seeming like they do, right? Oh, we need to help single moms with kids, make it a priority. They don't. All they end up doing really is just using them for cheap labor, but not actually ever paying them for all the work they do to help a church. And the problem is that the kids suffer, whether it's a daughter, a son, whoever it might be, right? So for me personally, right, I was the only brother. I'm adopted as well. So I found that out when I was about 8 or 9 years old, right? That's a different story there. And the church did not really handle that well either, right? Because I think for adoption in churches, especially fundamental churches, they don't handle news like that very well. I remember telling teachers or friends, like, hey, I found him adopted, and they just give me weird looks. Like, oh, well, okay, cool, whatever. Don't care. Kind of like, whatever. It's like, well, no, that should be a big deal because if it's a big deal to a kid and they're trying to understand, like, so that's not actually my mom and dad, and that's not actually my family. What does this mean? Like teachers and you would think a staff at a church would be more open to that and just listening, right? To really be more accepting or just be more welcoming to that. No, it was a very much oh, you're adopted, so ooh, we're gonna kind of stay away from you. So with having a speech impediment, with having learning difficulties, finding out you're adopted, and having a single mom doing the best you can to raise my sisters and myself, and of course going to private school, you add all these things together, and to be more direct with your question, it's a very dark and a very slow time in life. So looking back on it, right, it really is a very dark time because there's a lot of times where it really was just say my sister, my younger sister and I, a lot of times on our own, right? Because my mom be working, we get home from school, you had Wednesday night service, you had Sunday morning, Sunday night. So if we were either alone or we were at church or school, so a lot of like the raising, like becoming older in life was done by ourselves because with a
Mhm.
single mom, they got to work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was no help from the church for like childcare, for financial support, for anything that your mom was dealing with.
No, that let's be honest here. That's a joke. That's a really silly avenue to ever go down. I'm not going to say that every church is like that. 'Cause I've never been
Right.
to every church, in every state. So, but I will say the churches I have been to and the friends I have still to this day that either part of church or that used to be part of a church, whether it was a fundamental church, a non-denominational, whatever it is, there is a very much a lack, especially in fundamental Baptist church, independent IFB churches. There is very much a lack of care and a lack of attention when it comes maybe single dads or single moms trying to raise kids. In fairness to single dads as well.
Are you comfortable sharing about any of the abuse that happened at home for you?
Uh, Not necessarily, because I've actually already
Okay.
done a podcast about this a couple months ago. That
Yes.
was pretty fresh as well.
Um, are you, if people want to go watch, where could they find that?
Oh, wait a minute, Josie, you've actually seen that, haven't you?
I have, yes, it's on Unfiltered
That's
Stories.
that blew up actually. That has one of the highest viewed watches ever on a 2.1 or 2.3 million following
Wow.
pages on Facebook. I believe it's in the two. I think the last time I checked, there were 240,000 views that people have watched that video. It's like the
That's
That's
highest
crazy.
awesome.
on the entire page. Um,
How does it
We
make
can
you
so
always
feel?
I'm trying
share.
to think. What was the name of that, Josie, that it's on? I feel horrible
It's
for forgetting.
Unfiltered Stories.
That's right.
Is that a podcast?
Yeah, it
It's
actually
a
is.
podcast,
Um,
social media page, something like that. They have a
Cool.
lot of crazy stuff going on there.
all different
That's
kind of
awesome.
stories from like
Yeah, we can
everywhere.
always share that below or just share
Yeah.
it in general. Um, but yeah,
So,
so
how did that make you feel that that's like blown up so much and that it's out there for everybody to see?
Yeah, it was. So it started actually. Um, so I do a lot of like social media work, like on TikTok, right? I spent a lot of time there advocating for human rights, for women's rights, and I've gotten very political the past several months. Right, started off with like deconstruction, a lot of good friends, deconstructing from religion, Christianity in particular, right, and from different
mhm.
churches and whatnot, all across the country, or whatnot. And it went from that, it went into talking about human rights, women's rights, talking about the patriarchy, talking about misogyny, all these things that I speak on a lot about.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so there's a lot of work I'm doing, like good work, right? And I've actually met some incredible people. I've met some biblical scholars, some lawyers, attorneys, nurses, some doctors. I met a rabbi, all different kind of people, right?
Yeah.
That's one of our questions as well is finding out where you are now, like if you are deconstructing, if you have deconverted, like what is your journey looking like now for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Um, I think my deconstruction started honestly in my early 20s. It very much so was a ongoing process. And when I say my deconstruction, I think there's always a pre-deconstruction that people don't talk about, right?
Mhm.
So you have your pre-deconstruction, you have your ongoing deconstruction, and then you have your looking back, seeing where you came from, like you just said, Christy, right? So my pre-deconstruction happened when I was about junior high, freshman in high school, when my mind started being opened, right, to different
Mhm.
possibilities of what might be out there or maybe there's other things, right? Not like aliens or anything. Of course, I like, comic books and stuff like that, but nothing crazy or rabbit holes, right? It's more so just my eyes being opened and reading a lot of philosophy, a lot of different kind of books and different avenues of just learning, right? Seeing that, maybe that there is other religions out there besides Christianity, right? Maybe
Mhm.
there's some truth behind like Hinduism. Maybe there's some truth behind maybe someone that's Catholic, right? Obviously, they're all connected between Christianity and Catholic and whatnot, but maybe there's some truth out there besides Christianity, right? So I had to be private about it. I had to be very quiet about it because you don't ever speak about different thoughts when you grow up in a
Mhm.
very tight-lipped private school, right? There's a very much a unspoken, if you will, like oh you don't talk about anything outside of the Bible. Like with obviously with IFB, you follow the Bible to a T, which is
Mhm.
ironic because the Bible itself um, after having read the Bible over 12 times through in my lifetime now, after going through my personal deconstruction, obviously now I'm an atheist. A lot of people don't know that, but of course, social media, everyone knows, right? And slowly, some people have found out, in real time and whatnot. But some people do, some people don't. Of course, Christy, and your husband knows, and obviously Josie now knows. So some people know, some people don't. So that was a different part of kind of like coming out as far as not believing what you once did. And
Mhm.
there's very much a toxic mentality and a very much a fearful mentality of just even personally when you start to leave what you once knew for a very long time because it started at 5.5, 6 years old, literally getting saved and baptized, listening to a message about hell and fire and brimstone, thinking
Mhm.
that, I don't do what I'm being told right now, and if I die, I'm going to go to hell and burn forever. Which technically, if you do your history into the Bible, hell is not real. It's not. It's a thing that was created to basically put fear into people. Right? Hell was never actually real, according to the actual biblical history. Right? It was added years later to put fear and still into people to
Interesting.
be indoctrinated. That's one
I
thing I
haven't heard
learned
that
through
before.
deconstruction. So there is no actual place of hell. It was more so like an idea, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a place out there and whatnot. There was no actual hell. So that's one of the comforting things, right? And obviously, if you believe in it and you believe in the literal interpretation of the Bible, obviously it's very fearful. It's very gives you nightmares as a kid, right? Even as an adult, if you
Yeah.
believe in it, it's like, ooh, if I don't, which made no sense either because if you are faithful and just to confess your sins, he's going to forgive you. The problem is if you're already saved, but you're still, committing sin and you haven't asked for forgiveness, why do you keep having to ask for forgiveness if you've already asked for
Been, like,
forgiveness
cleaned
and
and
been
washed
saved?
Yeah.
by the blood.
Yeah. It's like
White
taking
as
a shower
snow.
daily.
No, it's all very
Um,
confusing, to be honest. I'm like,
That's another one of those hundreds of inconsistencies that are across the
well, I
Bible.
mean, you guys, okay. The Bible literally says, like, when you get saved, nobody can pluck you from his hand.
Yeah.
Okay? So the fact that I'm atheist now means that I can't be plucked from his hand, right? Because I was saved. I truly believed that thing. I truly like asked for him
Yeah,
to
but because you're an
save me
atheist now, you're
and
going to
forgive
hell.
me. So he should be dwelling in my heart forever. There's no way to like undo that.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I say I'm an atheist, technically, I think I still have the insurance of like
Fire
going
insurance.
to
Yeah.
heaven because I already got saved a million times. You know what I mean? I don't know. So
no, that
it's
makes
like,
perfect
why
sense.
does it matter? Like none of it
That
makes
yeah, it
sense.
makes so much sense. Yep.
I've gotten saved, so why are you worried about my soul? Like,
Right?
well, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I
I
think
don't know.
that
It's all
they
very ridiculous.
I think they would probably try to argue that, if you are sitting here saying that you're an atheist, which both of you are, and I want to make it very clear that I 100% respect that. I'm absolutely okay with that. Even though I still believe in
Mhm.
God, I'm really not a bad person. Y'all can be atheists. That's fine with me. Um, but like they would argue that if you're sitting there saying you're an atheist, then the salvation, like that conversion experience wasn't real, that you didn't
Oh yeah,
actually
for sure.
believe. And that's
No, yeah.
total BS. It's
Hmm.
total BS. Because I mean, I know that at least for me, and I mean, Krista, we've talked about this, like we believed so hard and we were
Hmm.
so zealous and we were so into this. Like, there's no way you can tell me that that wasn't real.
Yeah. No, I fully believed. I felt God's
Yeah.
presence, all of the
Yeah.
things. Um, it just ended up not being what I wanted to
Yeah.
continue believing. And especially since becoming a parent, like I don't want to indoctrinate my kids
Right.
at a young age and give them more anxiety and stuff that they don't need on them. Like, I'm not telling my 5-year-old about hell. Like,
Yeah.
what?
I think it goes further than that, though, right? Because if you look at what the Bible teaches about slavery and different ways to do, to treat slaves and to how to purchase slaves and whatnot, and you look at let's just say, genocide of, say, wiping out an entire planet, because God didn't like what they were doing, so he's just gonna
Mhm.
wipe the whole earth off of everyone. That's
I
not
mean,
love.
yeah, especially like the Old Testament God, which they're different for some reason, but the Old Testament God is very violent and very reactive
Yes.
and not loving.
He
He's
likes
very
to
much
blow
like
things up.
this or else,
Yeah.
like kill your son or else. Like,
Yep.
and why is it always the men that are being told to kill their son? Like, I'm sorry, if you want to make it
I think because they know the
actually
woman wouldn't do it.
exactly. But what I'm saying is, if you want to make it legitimate sacrifice, it would be the mother killing the child
Yeah.
because that the mother's love is unlike anything else you could ever imagine. And if anyone ever tried to get me to kill my kids, I would be like, fuck all of you. I would never do that. So if a
Go get my
mother did
gun.
that, she would probably be a psychopath. But also, that would prove like true love and devotion to a god or whatever.
Which is just
If
stupid because why does God require that? Like, what kind of a God requires you to murder your child? By the way, all children are a gift from God in the IFB, even the ones that come about from rape, incest, all of those kinds of wonderful things.
Mhm.
All children are a gift from God.
But
Same
then we'll
God who
bully
also.
them. We'll bully them if they're
Oh,
different.
yeah. No. But, like, same God who also says, kill your child as a symbol of love to me, says, all children are a gift from me. Like, make it make sense. It's not
Nothing,
mathing.
none of it makes sense, guys.
No.
After you're out of it, like you just you learn all of these things that
Yeah.
really don't make sense. And we're just brainwashed into thinking all of these things and having these perfect sayings and phrases that make it seem okay. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not okay. None of it's okay. If you really read the Bible, it's horrific. It has a lot of horrific tales and
Yeah.
things that kids should not be reading, like a lot of sexual stuff, a lot of
Oh,
murder, a lot
yeah.
of
A
rated
lot of rape,
R
a lot of
stuff.
murder, a lot of really
Yes,
bad
that
things.
like
Yeah.
kids should not be learning about these things at all. Like we shouldn't be talking about sex at a very young age. And then you wonder why people are literally sex obsessed,
Obsessed.
porn obsessed, all of the things. No, it has nothing to do with the world,
Mm-mm.
like pushing this on people. It has
No.
nothing to do with the fact that there is porn out there. It has to do with the fact that you're teaching these men and women about sex from a very, very young age, that they don't need to be hearing about sex until they're old enough to hear about it and
Mm-hmm.
until they're interested. Like,
Right.
it's not something you need to be telling them.
You're
And
putting that, like, so you make it interesting and taboo from a very young age. You make it like, ooh, it's this wonderful, awesome thing, but you can't do it. And then what do you expect kids to do? If I say I have chocolate,
mhm,
but you can't have any, they're going to go for the fucking chocolate. Like, what do
yeah,
you expect these
they're
people to
all they're
grow
going
up
to
and
think
do?
about. All
It's
they're going to think
all they
about is
think
that chocolate.
about. Yeah. It's
Yep.
all I thought about for a really long time. Like,
Hmm.
full honesty. Like, and I'm
No, yeah,
very
girls,
thankful that I
girls
didn't
and
do a
men,
lot of
like
the things that I
literally,
could have, but like it's literally like the one thing on your mind all constantly, all the time.
yeah.
It's
And then they
crazy.
wonder how that like all of these kids get impregnated before. I mean, obviously because they weren't taught about safe sex and
No.
sex education. They were just taught about how pleasurable it is and how
Mhm.
you can't have it.
Yep.
So,
Well,
Yep.
but let's be honest here, right? Sexual education is actually non-existent in the IFB.
yeah. Oh
What
no,
it is
it's not.
actually a taboo. They don't really care about bodily integrity. They
No.
don't care about a woman's right to choose ever.
Hmm.
They don't. They don't care about even, say, young boys not feeling comfortable, say, around other young boys or men,
Mhm.
Hmm.
right? They don't care because in the IFB, men are they are the hierarchy of everything, right?
Hmm.
So you have God, then you have men, then you have women, then you have children, and of course you have babies, right? So if you're not in the right pecking order, of course, then you have single moms, single dads, all different things all thrown in, right? If you're not in the high pecking order, say like on staff or in the
Mhm.
clique or part of the cool crowd, then you get pushed down and forgotten about. And if you say anything different than what everyone else is talking about, or if you go a little bit off track, maybe you just wore jeans, right, as a woman, or maybe you wore a polo shirt, right, that was a not a shirt and tie as a man. You were looked at differently.
Yep.
You were spoken about. You were looked down at.
So, okay, I have a question. So, you're a man, and
Correct.
so you grew
Or
up
are
as.
you? Are you? Do you do you
Am
Maybe I'm
I?
making assumptions. Are you?
do you
No.
identify as a
So
male?
my pronouns are he, him. I'm a male or a man.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so
We don't want to
you're a male.
assume. We don't want to assume.
Yes, thank you.
That's fair.
So you grew up male in the IFB, and we know that men are awarded a higher status automatically than women. Did that ever factor into your decision to leave? Did that make it harder knowing that this status that you could have as a man in the IFB was going to be something positive?
No, actually, because kind of like what I alluded to earlier. If you're not part of the cool crowd, if you're not part of the clique, if you're not part of, say, the direction that they want you to go, say, older going to a IFB college like West Coast or Golden State or Pensacola, colleges like that, if you weren't actually having desires or being, acting like you're interested in all these tour groups coming through, which, let's be honest, those are jokes. Okay, let's just be honest here.
You're a joke,
Respectfully, they're
Christy.
Thanks.
jokes.
No.
Thanks,
Okay.
Cody.
Hold
Gee.
on. Besides Christy, because when I say joke, I mean it's the idea of being like, oh, we have our new and latest greatest thing coming around. Why don't
Yeah.
you throw your life and waste what hundreds of $1,000s to an
Yeah.
education that won't actually
Yeah.
benefit you in the real world?
I want to say though, I worked very hard on this tour groups to try to get as many people to sign up for
I'm sure
school.
you did.
Yeah.
Doesn't these schools still have a demerit system even as adults?
Yeah.
Oh my God, really?
Also, we also like I remember when I worked at McDonald's in college, I wasn't allowed like women had curfews and men didn't. So like men could stay out and work all night. Like literally Nathan did. He worked like
What
night
the
shifts
hell?
and I had to work till like 11 or something and I got in trouble for for coming back like at 11:30 or something because my shift ended at 11. And I was like, "Well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to make money to pay you guys or not? Because
Right.
like
Fair
this is the only
question.
time I have to work and I can't not work
That's so dumb.
because I won't get a degree like I didn't get a degree because I couldn't pay for it. So, it is what it
If I
is.
may say one word to that, I would say the word patriarchy. That's all.
100%. No, I
100%.
fully agree. I mean, I'm fully over the whole idea of a man being in charge of the church and
Oh, yeah.
men being the head of the household and all the things, like all of that's bullshit. And it's none of I don't believe any of those things at all
No.
anymore. Um,
No.
but it's very toxic to believe those things, and obviously it's affected everything, especially like our politics, and it's made the future very fearful, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
So, Cody, you're atheist now, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you said that you did like a bunch of kind of studying and thinking about different kinds of religions, different, possible truths out there. What was the thing, like, how did you come to the conclusion of atheist out of everything else that was out there?
Yeah, so for different people, there are different routes or avenues they go from leaving the faith, whether you're Catholic, Calvinist, Christian, Lutheran, whatever kind of like, certain group of religion you are when you leave, there's
mhm.
different ways you leave the faith, I guess you could say. Mine really stem from things I heard about the Bible that I hadn't really heard about before, right? So even though I had read it all the way through, there were things in it that I had to actually stop to really dissect and see what it actually meant and see what it actually was impacting to my life and people around me, right? Let's just take into a second, right? The 2S LGBTQI plus, right? And why
Mhm.
that is such a fearful thing in the IFB. or let's take into fact how there's such a dark and mysterious cloud over any kind of like knowledge outside of the Bible, right? Especially for IFB, because IFB is very much a literal interpretation of the Bible. So if you don't follow it to a T, if you don't believe in it always and forever, you know, then you are literally ostracized. I would see families, people that used to be on staff, ostracized because even though they didn't become an atheist, they kind of just went a little bit different route. Maybe they wore jeans, maybe they say had drinking moderation, things like this. They would get ostracized from the IFB because you weren't following the Bible to a literal, definition or following the church. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because then you have what the church would do for IFBs. They would try to put in, say, materialistic things, right? They would try to make up these weird rules that actually weren't biblical if you were a Christian or an actual trying to follow Christ, right? They just weren't
Mhm.
biblical at all. Trying to say, well, women have to wear dresses, men have to wear shirt and ties every week. That's not biblical. There's
Yeah,
nothing in the Bible that
the
says
whole, like,
anything
dress
like that.
code situation is like, where did you even get this from?
No,
Like,
it's because they want to blame women for their inability to control themselves. That's literally the entire reason that dress code exists. Because if you dress a certain way, you won't be a stumbling block to men and
well, but
their.
on top of that, to me, I always thought, like, I think at the very end, so like after we got married and everything
Mhm.
was when we stopped going to church. But it was like to the point where I was like, why am I having to dress up so fancy every single Sunday and Wednesday and all the things? Like I don't want to dress up like this anymore. I want to be
Yeah.
comfortable and I want to
Yeah.
dress like however I want to dress. I don't want to be putting on I felt like I was like putting on like
It's a costume. You're
yeah.
literally putting on
And
a costume.
to me
Performance.
it's honestly it's just like it just it was more like the fancier and like richer you seemed, the better of a Christian you seemed. Like the nicer you looked, the nicer you dressed, like all of that mattered more than your actual soul. Like your outside appearance was way more important than anything inside. And that always
100%.
really irritated me. And to be honest, when we're like preaching or wanting to like get people to come into the church, whether they're single, like a single mom, a family like without, I don't know, like without family to support them at all,
Mhm.
poor people, like people that were supposed to be actually like helping, right? The needy and stuff. If we're going to them while wearing these fancy robes and things, it's just like they feel so out of place when they come to our church if we're literally wearing like fancy, do you know what I'm saying? Like
I think a lot of people
rich.
were really condescending about it. Like it just creates that disparity. Like it's very obvious who the important people are
Well,
by how they dress and how nice the nice things that they have.
it's giving the story in the Bible with the when he like threw the table.
Yeah,
It's giving what are they called?
the
The
Pharisees
ones that yeah, is it Pharisees? The ones that were like fancy ass, like
I
insane,
think that
like
was the Pharisees.
they put on a show like they were the like God's
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
children
that
and
was the
stuff.
Pharisees because the Bible
And then
calls
he
them out as
came in.
hypocrites.
Yeah, and then he came in and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
basically,
you love my interpretation
he
of the
came in with
Bible.
a whip.
I got you.
Yeah, so for people to say that Jesus was like the better version of God, even though if you
Should I
technically
read the
believe in the
Bible
Trinity,
and then say it in my version and just be like, so then Jesus came in and he goes like, what the fuck's happening in here? Like, this isn't what I wanted.
This is the new. We're gonna call
a
it the
whip the
Gen Z
people.
version of the Bible. Like,
Oh my God, no. I don't know Gen Z words like
okay,
no
maybe the
cap or
millennial
whatever.
version of the
It would
Bible. We
have
could
to
do
be
that.
millennial because I
We
don't
could
know
do
You don't
like
that.
want to read
the
that Bible. It's wild. Don't
No,
do not
I've
read
already
that
read the
one.
Bible a ton, but I'm saying that it would be funny to do like a comedic
a millennial
Oh,
translation of the Bible.
they
We
have a
might need
Gen
to
Z
do this. That'd be
Bible.
funny.
I'd want to like almost like a drunk Bible like storytelling. Do you know what I mean? Like like drunk
Oh my
history
gosh.
where you're just like just say it how you think that it went kind of thing.
That could be
Um,
fun.
no, but seriously though, like with the Pharisees and stuff, it seems very much the same where it's like uh they were like dressed up and
Yeah.
like they made it seem like they were super godly and stuff like that and it made Jesus mad.
Yeah, it
And
makes Jesus
that's why,
mad. Like, if you believe in a real
yeah,
God, it makes him mad when you are hypocritical, when you're a piece of
yeah.
shit. Like, it makes him mad when you pretend to be something you're not just for the sake of appearances. That's the God that I believe in. Like,
Well, yeah,
that,
because like he seems, at least the New Testament God seems to care about like what's inside
right,
rather than what's on the outside. Like when he's like hanging out with like Mary Magdalene and things like that. He was
right.
literally like in the streets with people that they tell us not to ever hang out with. So like,
Yep.
what is it, guys? Like Jesus himself was hanging out with
Make up your
whores.
mind. They
What do
don't
you
know.
want me to
They
do?
don't know.
You know?
They don't know.
No, it's ridiculous. It's like then you just hate those people. and and honestly, yes, with like the whole like um gay community, queer community, all of that, like I feel like you need to look at the root of the problem of like where did the hate come from for this community? And if you really look into it, it literally has come from the Bible. It has come from religion, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be that hate for
And
this
it's
entire
really
community of
frustrating
people.
because it comes out of a lot of mistranslation of the Bible and like people's perceptions and the things that they want to believe. And I mean, we talked about this a little bit with Jay, like, but like some of those verses that talks, like the verses that are used to support homophobia are grossly mistranslated from the original
Hmm.
Hebrew. And that's been used as an excuse to hate on that community. Um,
Yeah.
So like my God, the God that I believe in, does not hate gay people. He doesn't hate queer people. Like the Bible preaches love in a lot of places, and that's what it's supposed to be about. And they take these like bits and pieces of scripture and they manipulate it to fit whatever they decide that they want to feel, not whatever is the actual intent. And I mean, I'm not like, I don't believe the Bible fully in its entirety. I don't believe in the inerrancy of scripture because men wrote it. So there are places where I have big problems with some of the things that are in the Bible. But there are places where I think that the people are the problem, not necessarily the Bible.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Yeah,
my
it's
TED
hard
Talk.
because it's like,
Sorry.
well, literally like the other day we were doing a video and I researched certain Bible verses talking
Yeah.
about disciplining your children essentially. And I was just like, literally all of these verses are talking about abuse, like all
Yeah.
of them. Like, and I'm like, I'm not even and I'm not even looking at it in the way of like interpreting it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's literally saying to whip them or
Yeah.
whatever, like actual abusive terms, not
Yeah.
just discipline and like
Yeah.
making it whatever you want. Literally saying to whip them or to stone them or whatever. Like,
Yeah. There's a
what?
verse. I'll have to find it and like put it up here, but there's a verse that literally talks about stoning your child. Um,
Because they're drunk and fat.
yeah, because they're drunk and fat. Stone your kid if it's drunk and fat. So yeah, we love
Which is
that.
ironic because most pastors are overweight.
Yeah, it's true.
Saying,
It's true. It's all I don't know. All of it's kind of bullshit to me, personally.
So,
But yeah.
Cody, is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of your experiences at Faith or any other subjects that you want to cover before we wrap up today?
sure, let's talk about corporal punishment and how
Ooh,
that's
let's talk
wild,
about corporal
right?
punishment. Yes, let's do.
So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get into that. So I was one of the lucky chosen ones that started all the way back from when the postmans were actually on staff, right? And I believe there was certain things you had to sign as parents to allow staff or the principal to literally spank your children. Now, obviously,
Yep.
I'm against spanking. I
Well,
think
to
spanking is
hit.
abuse.
Let's call
Yeah,
it what it is. To hit your
um,
children.
exactly. Hitting spanking is a very soft term that they like to use, to kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of like dumb it down.
It's
But
a
it's
Hmm.
PG
abuse.
kind of term for hitting your
Yeah.
kid.
It is. And the moral of the story is this, right? I remember having to slide in between two different chairs that had like armrests, right? Because when you're a kid, you're going to scream, you're going to move around when you're getting hit, right? With I believe there was a long paddle that had a duck on it, right? And then after the Donnellys took over on staff and became principal and whatnot, there was still corporal punishment, right? So if you got a certain amount of demerits, you got sent to the principal's office for whatever reason, right? You had a certain amount of demerits, and then whatever reason you got sent, and you had to get spanked. And eventually that went away because the spanking went to an extreme level, right? So literally, if you were a kid that was screaming or kicking too much, they would slide you in between two chairs of the armrest, and then depending on whatever your punishment was, you get spanked by a very large paddle, or some cases like a 2x4. So these are very real things that happen in IFBs and did happen in Faith Baptist Academy as well that people don't like talking about, right? Because it's a very dark subject. But the problem is, it's like I'm one of the people that actually happened to at a very young age. I know it happened to other people as well. These are things that stick with you as a kid, right? Because not only was I, let's be honest here, beat when it came to being bullied at that school and that church, looked down upon because as a Christian, I was actually very trying to follow like Jesus and actually trying to witness to people. But when I bring people around, I was looked at as I was some sort of like evil person, right? Because I had family members that were maybe atheists or didn't believe the same. Oh, you must be like them. So you are the devil. You're a devil worshiper. The fuck I was. I was literally trying to bring people to church. But you would look down on other people and then ostracize me and cast me out. So of course I'm going to go hang out with other people, still a Christian, so trying to witness to them, but I'm not going to be around church because all you are hypocrites,
Mm-hmm.
especially in IFB. You say one thing, but you act a different way. You in church you act all kind of and nice, but then now in actually public you're assholes and you know it.
Mhm.
But when you get called out, you want to act like, oh, woe is me, persecution. No, it's not true because the people that are persecuting people are people of the IFB with their very strong opinionated, trying to force down their opinions, of religion on women, schools, all these things. There's a reason for separation of church and state. And that's
Mhm.
where it gets very dangerous with the IFB, right? And that's why a lot of other denominations they like to separate themselves from the IFB because it's a
Yeah.
very extreme way of teaching.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's like an insane thing um that they're like we need a I don't know, like I feel like Christians are very much they seem like they care about the Constitution and democracy and stuff like that. And then they're supporting these people that are literally trying to force and push church stuff into the state stuff when it's not supposed to be that way. Like, that's not how our founding, like, they literally are like, our founding fathers wanted it this way, blah, blah, blah. Like, they use that rhetoric all the time. And then it's like, when it comes to specific things that are against their religious belief or whatever, personally,
Mm-hmm.
then they want to push it into government. And it's like, no, like there's a reason there's a separation between church and state. And
Yeah.
that was what the forefathers wanted and all of the things. Like, so actually stand by your words. Like,
Yeah,
stop
if you don't
preaching.
believe in the separation of church and state, which a lot of them say that they do, but don't, I think they should have to start paying taxes. I think they
Oh,
should have to start
100%
paying them
sure.
right
To
now.
me,
Churches don't pay taxes, y'all.
I'm like, stop pushing your shit into our
Yeah.
government and into our schools that are public schools when you have like you literally have every right and you have the rights to this day. You are not being persecuted like you act like
Yeah.
you are.
Yep.
You have a Christian school, you have a church. You're allowed to homeschool your kids. You're allowed to send them to school and learn things that aren't even true. You are allowed to do that
You
and
do
give
have the
them a
right.
shitty education. You have that
Yep.
right. But like you don't have the right to push those things onto other people.
Yeah.
We aren't bothering you. Who's telling you not to pray? Who's telling you to take the 10 commandments out of your school? Nobody.
Right.
Who's telling you, you know what I mean? Like it's like you can't force your shit on us. Like it's not it's so hypocritical. Like
Yes.
they don't want anyone to ever force anything on them, but they're forcing everything on everyone else. It's
Yep.
not okay.
So if you're paying into something, just like missionaries or on a staff or whatever, you should be also told everything you're paying into as a tithe giving person in a
Yes.
church. You should have
Yeah.
a open communication. And that's why I like, now I may not go to church, but my mom goes to a church where they actually have meetings and they're very open about where all their money's going to. It's very closed.
Mhm.
You have to be a member there. But I appreciate that fact at least where they're
Yes.
open. They
Yeah.
share where all their money is going to. And they're very open
Mhm.
about it. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a
No,
big
there's a
thing for
lot.
sure.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that that's why they want to be independent,
They're not
so
independent.
they can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, they want to be independent because they don't want to have to bear the consequences of somebody else in that denomination doing something bad. But they also don't want to be independent because that means limited resources, that means limited opportunities to go and, interact with other churches, sports games, things like that. Like you can't have it both ways. They just want to have everything the way that they want
Well,
to
I
have it
think
and control
technically,
everything.
financially speaking, they all stand on their own.
Yeah, some of them are missions churches. So some of them get money from other churches and support
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
most of these churches support missionaries like
Or
overseas.
like startup churches and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of these churches support missionaries overseas, but some of them are very focused on like home missions. So it comes to churches like within the United States, starting
Mhm.
churches, planting churches, things like that. And they will go through organizations that will help fund their church plant and things like that. So they really are all interconnected,
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
even
I think that
financially.
what I was saying, like them being quote unquote independent, it keeps them from like having to take any responsibility or anything. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it really um takes that away. And there's a reason why they do things specifically the way that they do them
Yeah.
legally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, Cody, we just have one last question for you. Christy, this is your favorite question to ask, so I'm going to let you do that.
Okay, Cody, what is your cult confession?
Ooh, this is uh this is a good question, Christy. Thank you for asking it, and thank you, Josie and Christy, for having me. I appreciate both of you.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I've known Christy a lot longer personally
Yeah.
through Nathan. Nathan is a very good brother of mine. Um,
Nathan's my
but
husband, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I was actually there when Nathan and Christy first, started dating.
Yeah.
I
Cute.
remember I
Cute.
was there. So in fact, I was there when a lot of people started dating and got together, and I'm not married, nor do I have a girlfriend. Something wrong with that. Or
Yeah,
not. There's
he's
nothing wrong with
single,
that,
ladies
but
and
still.
gentlemen. No.
No, I think it's good that you made it out without someone, to be honest.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I didn't have struggles after, but anyway.
Sure.
My cold confession would be this, right? I always wanted to go and actually dance, right? Whether that was like salsa, whether it was like tango, whether it was like, obviously living in South Carolina, right? Going learning different ways of just, getting down and dancing. Whether that meant like, hey, I take care of my body, so why not go dance and people can see that, right? Nothing wrong with being proud of the work you do to your body, right? Good
Mhm.
exercise, good dopamine, all these things, right? And I always wanted to paint my nails black, right? Because I like nail polish, right? Nothing wrong with that, right?
Mhm.
And so, as far as a man, like nothing wrong with being confident, secure in your own masculinity, right? As long as you're not being toxic with it, you can be secure in your own masculinity, right?
Yes.
So I've had my nails done as far as just getting them cleaned, pedicure, manicure, stuff like this. So personal hygiene, right? Which is something that's looked down upon when it comes to
Yeah, it
men.
is.
Like fashion is looked down upon in the IFB when it comes to fashion,
Yeah.
right? And I haven't worn a shirt and tie for like a long time either. I wore it at my mom's wedding when she got remarried. Western uh, bow tie and everything. But yeah, my cool confession is really simply like I really got into dancing. Whether it was like techno dancing, breaking it down, tango, all the different kind of
Breaking it
dancing,
down.
right? I like singing. I like writing poetry. These are things that were always looked
Mm.
down upon in men in the IFB.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually, my son always wants me to paint his nails. He comes up to my desk because I have a huge nail polish collection. and he always wants me to paint his nails. And I told Nathan the other day, I was like, you guys should go get your nails done together sometime because he like Aiden enjoys it. And it's something that like, obviously he has no thought of gender
That's
whatsoever.
so
And it's such a
nice.
beautiful thing.
I love
Like to
that.
see, yeah, like the innocence of children and like before they're kind of like not
Indoctrinated.
ruined, but a little bit
Yeah,
ruined by the
ruined.
world
A lot.
and their like ideas and all of these things like pushed upon them because of their gender or whatever. Like it's ridiculous because they don't think about those things
Yeah.
naturally ever. They
Yep.
don't. And like they have to be told like, "Oh, a dress isn't for boys." When it's like, "No, a dress is for dancing." That's what we say in this house. A dress is
Yeah.
for dancing. If you want to put on your dancing dress, you can put your dancing dress on. Like there's no there shouldn't be gender to anything, to paint, to clothes.
Yeah.
None of it. It's
I
ridiculous.
love that. I think that that is one of my favorite
No,
coping
yeah, I
lessons
think
we've
that is
heard. That's
awesome.
amazing.
A
Yeah.
little thing I learned too about getting pedicures, manicures. I would definitely kind of warn your husband, as you already know, Christy and Josie, that at least from a man's point of view, they're not actually for the first time enjoyable. Because when they take things and they go underneath your fingernails or your toenails, it's actually quite painful. I learned, and I'm like, how do women enjoy this? You know, getting it done like every
Yeah.
week or every
No,
month, and I'm like,
It's an acquired taste.
you know what I do is I don't go in at all. I do my own at home. But like pedicure wise, I feel like the older you get, the more you want to get like scrubbed down and stuff because you
Yeah.
start getting callus and you know, like
Yeah.
you just walking around because you walk around your feet, you know, get
Yep.
old.
wait, they do?
I very rarely do my nails. I
No,
want to do them
I
more,
always
but
have
I
my
never
nails
do.
done, but I do them
You do.
myself and they're my real nails. And um
Mine too.
but
Yeah, get
I
it.
always forget one of the things that happens is like I hardly ever get pedicures, but I do them every once in a while. And I always forget that I'm ticklish because I do it
That
so
is okay. I have never
like
had a
I only
pedicure
do
in
it a
my
couple
life.
times.
I have
Wait,
never
with your
had a
nails?
pedicure in my life because my
No,
feet are
a
so
pedicure is
ticklish.
feet.
Oh,
Pedicure's
feet.
feet.
Okay. I was
Yeah,
like, how do you
no.
ticklish with your nails? I was confused there. Wait, what?
No,
Mm-mm.
my feet are so ticklish.
Have you gotten your feet done,
I've never
Cody?
gotten my feet
Yes.
done. That's
Yes.
awesome.
No,
I,
I
I didn't
literally forget.
understand the person who was doing my feet the first time, their English wasn't the greatest, and obviously I didn't speak the language they spoke right, but
Yeah.
they understood what I was saying, and I understood what they were saying. It was very interesting dynamic of understanding but
Yeah.
not understanding. There's like
I think
pain, and I'm
usually
like,
they're
yes.
Vietnamese, I believe.
A lot of them are
And
Vietnamese or
sometimes,
Yeah.
Korean.
yeah, but they're great at their job though. Honestly,
Oh,
very good at their job.
100%.
Like they're thorough,
Hmm.
very very thorough. I was in pain after the first time because like when you've never had it done as a man, it's like everything hurts.
Hmm.
Not like physically kind of, but like everything kind of burns. It's
It's
like your
I
toenails
would
uncomfortable.
burn,
I
your
would say
fingernails
it's like the
burn.
same as like if you plucked your eyebrows for the first time.
Oh my
Ooh,
Like
god,
I'm not
I
doing
love
that.
plucking my husband's eyebrows.
okay,
He
but
hates it.
That's
He like
painful.
tears up every time, but it's so much
I know,
fun.
but it's so
That is
funny
not fun.
because like
That's torture.
I
Yeah,
do
I do mine
mine,
too.
I don't feel any pain anymore
Yeah.
from it.
No.
But if I did Nathan's, he would be like crying.
Yes.
Yeah, he
No, I
would.
don't even feel anything like mostly here, but like if I get
No,
like
yeah.
under right here, I'll feel it a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, the skin's still
Yeah.
sensitive, but like
But
because
no,
we do
I'll
it
do
all the
Theo's and
time,
he's
we're
like,
used to it.
oh. It's the funniest
The
thing. I love
things we
it.
go through because
Yes.
society
Yep.
makes us is very
That's why I
frustrating.
Gotta
encourage
look like
all
this.
men to get their pedicure or manicure done so they can kind of experience like this weird like pain that women go through to like look a certain way with their fingernails or like
Yeah,
with their toenails. It's like just go do it once and you can experience
just
like what they I don't know why, but they like getting it done because to me it was painful. But I
mhm.
kept doing a friend of mine to just be supportive and they're like, hey, will you come with me? Will you? Because she's going through a rough time, and I'm like, yeah, I'll come. And so every week we'd go and get her nails done, and
Yeah,
I
it's
would
kind
spend
of boring
time.
going by yourself. You want to go with
I know.
someone to like
I
talk.
hate going by
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I would say that's a really good like idea, and like I feel like that's a good way to like make women feel
Yeah.
more understood and stuff.
Go
And
get a manicure with your wife. Do it.
I
She
mean,
will
that's
love
one of the
it.
reasons why like I like that Nathan has long hair right now because
Mm.
now he has to like deal with like how to do a ponytail,
Yes. Oh
how
Does
my
he have a
to
god,
like
dude.
ponytail like me?
no, he has long hair.
Beautiful. No.
Like as long as me probably.
Theo's
I
hair
think
used to
his
be
hair is
longer than mine. Like, and oh my god, it was so pretty. He looked like Thor. It was great, you guys. I was married to Thor. It was my childhood dreams come true. It was excellent. No, he's still Thor. Still love him. But no, his hair was longer than mine at a certain point. It was super pretty,
Mhm.
and it was really kind of nice to see him go through like shedding and like some of the struggles of like keeping up with hair.
Yeah.
It was
No,
validating
it
for
was
sure.
so cute. The other day, he's like, "How do you do like those buns that you do? Like, how
Hmm.
do you do those?" And I was like, "Oh, I
I showed
just,
him how to braid his hair for the first time. It was
yeah."
so cute.
I was like, it was like a messy bun. He didn't understand how to do messy buns because his buns come out like perfect. They literally look like samurai buns because they're
Oh my
like so
god.
perfect. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just you just have to do it so like
Yeah,
practice the time and do
I
it
I
actually
a
love
lot.
it.
understand
Yeah.
that. I had braids in my hair last year. My hair was down my shoulders last year, and I cut it off this last January. So I've now got it back into a ponytail. So it's finally
Hmm.
starting to grow back to its length.
There you
But
go.
I did it so my hair could grow out more healthy and more down to the roots, right?
Yeah.
And so by end of the year, it'll probably be back in braids
Honestly,
again.
I feel like any man should like, or all men should have the chance to grow out their hair at least once in their life. Like at
Yeah,
least do it
Mhm.
once.
if you
Because
want to, yeah,
from
because
the
like that's
second like
definitely something the IFB says no. You're not allowed to have
well,
like
no, from the
hair.
second that you're born, you literally like as a boy, you don't even get a choice. You're just like all your hair's
Yeah.
gone.
Men can have hairstyles. There's nothing wrong with having hairstyle. There's a very much a toxic culture against men. Whether you're IFB or not, if you are religious, they don't want you to have hairstyle. And it's like men can have hairstyle just like women.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I'm not sure why the whole like men having short hair even happened to begin with. I don't know if it
Well,
was
it
like
talks
because of
about the Bible
war.
talks about women's long hair being their glory. So that's something that's like specific to women in the Bible, even though
But
Jesus had long hair.
the thing is
So,
with a lot of different cultures, long hair, like with samurais and like with
mm-hmm.
Native Americans, long hair is significant it signifies something with
Yeah,
men.
yeah,
Obviously with women I think too, but like
yeah.
there's certain things so like I know within the Native American community they have it long always because it's like the I think it signifies life. And if someone dies in their family, they cut it a certain
Mm,
like they cut a certain amount to like
interesting.
honor that person with like hair and everything. It has no gender. Like we all have hair.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like
You should
hair
be able
should
to.
not hair
At the
doesn't
end of the
have
day,
gender.
like at the end of the day, it's your body. You can do whatever you want with it for whatever reason you
Mhm.
want. Like as long as you're not hurting another person, do whatever you want. That's
Yeah.
what it boils down to at the end of the day. Well, I think that that is probably a good place to end it for today. So thank you again, Cody, so much for taking the time to sit down with us, talk through some of these things. I know it's not always easy.
You're welcome.
If you like this video, please go give it a like and subscribe and do all the things. Share it with your friends. And thank you for watching.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Share your story.
If you have been affected by religious trauma or abuse, we want to hear your story.
Even if you're not ready to share publicly, we would be happy to listen and support you on your journey, free of judgment or pressure.
Please email us at cultconfessionskjv@gmail.com to get started.
We believe you.